Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon, co-author with Peter Vale of the digital book on Practice as a Way of Being. Find it at mylibrary.world. And now to our show.
Wow, folks, this is a record. I think I've had a few more podcasts with my son, Dave, but every once in a while I'll tune in to Tom Casey, who is the founding partner of Discussion Partners Collaborative, and ask Tom, what in hell is going on? And the answer is not just his opinion. His firm does constant research and has continuous dialogue with business leaders at every level. So their job, Tom, I assume, and you can correct me, is to not only run the company, but to be strategic, to look out ahead, to steer and clear. And when we spoke last, there was a rising number of bad things that are happening from the White House and out to his departments. And I assumed that the business leaders were nervous about it because it could affect the market and also customers and employees. But it wasn't quite as much as right now with a lot going on. So, Tom, what's going on?
Well, nothing good. I mean, first off, I'm sorry that you're having a little difficulty speaking, which gives me the opportunity just not to shut up. So I'll just
sit here and be like a mouse.
Well, listen, thank you for having me back. It's not often one gets to return to the scenes of their crime.
Yeah.
But think of it this way, David. This is, the clients that we have threw a boomerang out in January of 25. Okay. And it's coming back and they're wondering whether or not to catch it. Okay, they're essentially saying is plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, during this calendar year that is just completed, they are concerned on 4 levels. One is geopolitically. Second is domestically. Third is their commercial enterprises. And fourth is now they're starting to worry about what is the legacy that they are creating for their children and grandchildren? We are hearing that more and more and more. Okay,
makes sense. This is the time for all good men and women, to come to the aid. So,
or to reflect on what I mean. You're hearing words from our clients like "silence is complicity."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're hearing words from our clients saying, this isn't what I signed up for. You're hearing words from our clients who have feel that they have broken trust with not only their companies, but also their own value systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's serious.
Well, it is and it isn't, because what happens is if you did it for issues of convenience and expediency, shame on you. Mm-hmm. If you did it because you feel, okay, I got to meet payroll for 2,000 or 20,000 people, I have to think of them first, no matter how my own personal bias, okay, which would explain the law firms and some of the folks bringing gold bars, on the commercial sector to curry favor. And one of the things that we did, and I'm going to be referring back to this if you don't mind, David, is going into starting around Labor Day, we essentially identified what we called the 6 E's.
Yeah, I remember that. That was around our last podcast.
Right. And just to recap them, because I'm going to be referring to them, it's the economy, expectations, Europe, the Epstein files, the employees the administration has, and what we call the enemies.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what we're finding is 4 of these are coming into play as we ended 2025 and are going into 2026. One is the Epstein files. Okay. you talk to our clients, it's like, for the love of God, these people were victimized. Could we get to the bottom of this and not humiliate them any further?
Yeah.
Okay. And what does Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have to offer to this that she has to testify? Mm-hmm. So you hear these types of confusion. Okay. There was a law passed, signed by the president. Only one person didn't vote for it, signed by the president to produce the files. They still haven't been produced. Okay. So these are the things that say to our clients, these guys are not serious people. Okay. Leading us to the employees. If you look at the whole situation in terms of the people that the president surrounded himself with, okay, just in the recent past, you have the director of national intelligence showing up to take custody of voting machines in Georgia. You have the director of commerce at Davos insulting the Europeans to the point where the head of the EU walked out. Okay. You have the Department of Defense being accused of wartime for double tapping fishermen who may be drug dealers, or their families are being held hostage while they deliver the drugs. Okay. And you have the attorney general who supposedly had the files on her desk or whatever. Okay. Yeah. And what we did is an exercise recently, and we basically said, all right, one of the exercises we do with our commercial clients is we say, how do you want to be remembered? I mean, give us the words. What's the labels that you want? And you hear things like, I was a developer, I was a promoter, and it's the softer things they want to be remembered for, not what the earnings per share were when they got out of the game.
Right.
Okay, it's the softer skills. But if you apply that and you look at our Director of Homeland Security right now, okay, what you hear is Ice Barbie, okay, and Minneapolis.
Yeah.
This is her legacy, and that translates into the legacy that the administration has inherited and has to navigate around. And it is causing consternation among the commercial clients, and I'll extend that to the not-for-profit clients that we have, who are saying, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't, President Obama deported a hell of a lot more people than Trump did in his first year, even with the help of Stephen Miller, who really suffered from poor potty training, and it hasn't got any better. And, with all due respect, let's not sugarcoat it. The dude is a racist, and he doesn't pretend otherwise.
No, he's published it many times.
Oh yeah, he's
his rants.
He's basically put together a racial profile, which is anybody that is doesn't look like you and I. Lucky us. Okay. Although, I'm about 4 generations away from that, having to be deported because my ancestors would have come from Ireland.
I know those Irish, we got to get them out of the country. And
they weren't
85 million of them.
Yeah, they weren't exactly welcomed with big hugs when they came.
But we learned to like you folks. Yeah. In fact, I married an Irish woman. So I think we finally reached an agreement that anyone who's come here and stays and does the right thing from the standpoint of the processes that are available to them to remain. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what's made us have every last name you can imagine in Boston.
Well, you look at President Reagan, who was American Irish himself, okay, and he was talking. One of his last speeches was about the values of immigration, and the way that these things are going. Okay, unless there's an ulterior motive to have people with assault rifles and masked for another reason, if it is for immigration, okay, our clients don't understand how come they need the masks, how come they need the armament, and how come they don't have cameras on their uniforms like every other member of law enforcement.
Exactly.
Okay? They don't understand that. Okay. And the thing is, why are they shooting people while they're holding cell phones in Minneapolis? okay, or shooting somebody after they disarmed them, even though the guy was legally entitled to carry, okay, and had wasn't reaching for their weapon. They're either vindictive, vicious, or really poorly trained.
Okay. All of the above.
Well, these are the things, and I don't want to get into,
No, but the point is that here all of us are, including the business owners and business and nonprofit leaders who are just a few clicks above the whole population of this country, including through their employees. They're connected directly to the nerves, to the puzzlement, to the anger that more and more people look at the numbers of people who are out on the streets all over the country, tens of thousands of people. Some of those are their employees. And so they think, what do I do? Did I punish this guy for being caught on camera holding a placard saying, stop ICE? Of course not. So there's a lot of confusion, as you say, and among those leaders.
Mm-hmm. And what you find is also, David, is that, and this goes back to the 6 E's. What you're seeing is a coalition around two that are the most egregious right now. One is the quality of the people that the administration has in their leadership positions is not high. Mm-hmm. Okay, because loyalty was the test, not competency, not proficiency, not reputation, not scholarship, etc. Okay, it was loyalty. How's that working for you? Mm-hmm. And the other is the definition of enemy. Okay, is just about everybody. Okay, it is the elite law firms, it's the universities, it is the people who are political, disagree with you. Okay, mm-hmm. And now it's being extended to everybody who doesn't look like you. Mm-hmm. Okay, and one of the things that I find particularly offensive is listening to all this bullshit with somebody wearing a cross.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly a practicing Catholic, but I'm sure God is going to keep it score up there. Dude or dudette, you might want to rethink that before we may have our little sit down.
Let's hope.
But the thing that I'm coming back to that we're seeing, going back to this boomerang metaphor, is we're seeing the clients saying, I'm going to catch it and I'm not going quietly. That's what we're seeing. Okay, wow. We're seeing this. This is so screwed up.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't sit on the sidelines. I can't do anything that's politically correct. I can't do anything to avoid it. I'm just going to use our company as an example, probably a bad example. We, as you know, David, we do blogs, we do research. Okay. We try to stay in a lane that is not political. Okay. All that changed Labor Day of last year. Mm-hmm. Okay. We were essentially saying, this is nuts.
Yeah.
And what it was the meeting in Alaska between Putin and Trump.
No kidding. Well,
the red carpet.
You're not kidding. That was a telling moment right there.
You got to understand, about 60% of the people in the discussion partner collaborative are ex-military.
That's right.
That was offensive. So then we had to sit back and we made 3 strategic decisions. One is, do we use our research to point out why this is offensive? Okay, was one. Second is, do we communicate that to our clients, even though we may lose some, whether they're don't want to call attention to themselves, okay?
Right.
And third is, what do we got to lose, man? Our average age is 71. Why go quietly? So
yay for us older people. We've seen it all, and we've never seen anything as bad as this. So we can put it in deep perspective.
Yeah. Well, last week, I guess I just turned 76. And I didn't hear the trombones going or anything, but I did think, okay, I'm not going to go quietly. I have an audience. They can get off the reading list if they want, but we get the research to back us up.
That's the point.
you've read the books, you've read the blogs.
That's right.
So we're
You
essentially
do a lot of deep thinking.
Yeah, we're essentially saying hypocrisy, bias, intolerance, expediency, and aggression. Nobody wants that, and this is all you're giving them.
In spades, yeah. No. I thought of that when I remembered your four horsemen of the apocalypse, and it was in the context of particularly what the up and coming leaders in a company want or dislike in the people that they're likely to replace, and hypocrisy was number one, which means lie, and my Lord, there's a world record of lying, not only by the big guy, the very big guy, but all those people you mentioned, department secretaries and people who are in the public eye, and they look into the camera and say, no, that's not true. She was threatening that guy as she was driving away in the opposite direction. Don't your eyes, don't believe your lying eyes, in other words.
Yeah. Just in the same week, one of the op-eds we wrote for our clients was talking about, say what you see. Okay, which was a term I heard John Meacham, the historian down in Vanderbilt. Okay,
yeah,
which is essentially, do not try to persuade people that January 6th was a tour group that got lost.
It was tried, though.
Oh, it still is.
It just tourists
whacking on police were pardoned, and we don't even know, that's not even on the radar screen anymore. Mm-hmm. But just in that week, okay, we saw President Trump, who was threatening to invade Greenland, and frankly, the military people that I work with, we were having a debate, would that be a lawful order?
Okay. And then they'd have to consider that.
Well, it's inconclusive. I mean, it certainly wouldn't be automatic that people would do it without thinking about it. So there was the invasion of Greenland. All of this stuff came together at Davos. Okay, and Trump mistook and misspoke several times, at least 3 times, referring to Greenland as Iceland. And the press secretary not only came out and said that didn't happen, she went on the offensive with the reporter who said it.
Yeah, and called. Okay. And they tend to then tell. And then you have they're bad people and all that. And
in Minneapolis,
it's an old formula. I don't think it's working anymore.
No, I don't think truthfulness is being ascribed to these folks. Or decency, truthfully, leading up to the Minneapolis situation is without any facts at all. You had our Secretary of Homeland Security, a fairly big job with a big budget, okay, referring to this woman as a lunatic. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the gentleman who was killed, you had Stephen Miller referring to him as an assassin.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels, which is why our clients at Kitchenette Boomerang coming back, because they're really they're sick of it. They're really sick of it. And, David, you and I have been in the commercial space for a long time. Mm-hmm. This is not the bastion of socialism or even, anything other intellectualization on liberal democracy. These are people who are being held accountable for bottom lines. Okay.
Results.
So, exactly. And results and outcomes. And they're essentially saying, okay, this stupidity is challenging me on 3 levels. One is my own value system. Second is screwing around with tariffs and making the United States look like clowns. That's eventually going to hurt my business. And third is, what do I say to my associates when they ask, where do we stand?
Yeah.
And those are the 3.
That's the one when you walk across the shop floor or down the hospital corridors. That's when those associates are looking at you and looking for signs that you're aware, at least aware. I mean, if they act like, Minneapolis, it's a nice city. no, there's a lot going on. So that to try to pretend that you're so occupied with running the business that you can't pay attention to what's going on around you and in the streets and on television. Oh, I never watch the news. I've heard that so many times now, which is in a democracy not a good thing to claim. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, I think that people are avoiding the news unless they have a Xanax or a single malt.
Well, there's that. There's that. Yeah.
But you're raising another issue. Back in the Me Too movement, okay, when that was several years ago, we had a client a professional services firm, a really fairly big one and an extremely prestigious one. And this was a president who was a really nice man, compassionate guy. And he was approached by a cohort of his female employees who were criticizing him for not taking a stand on this. Where do we stand? Where do you stand? Okay. Now, he said, where do you think I stand? All right. I mean, he had the belief system that was supportive of women. Okay. And, the thing is that he didn't think it was necessary to say it. And this is catching the boomerang. This is what our clients are saying. They got to go on record on. They got to go on record on it.
Yeah, that's. I was wondering. I was intrigued by your metaphor of the boomerang, and now it's even more clear that. Sort of paraphrasing. Boy, I dodged that. I don't have to say anything.
I'll let it just go hit the ground.
Yeah, and then back it comes, only with greater force and with a lot more people aware. And I think they mean a little bit aware, a lot aware in terms of the Me Too movement or almost all these other social issues.
When we're playing with the metaphor, the outcome is if you don't catch it, somebody's going to pick it up and whack you upside the head with it. Okay, so that we don't want to get this is a family podcast, David. We don't want to get into violence. But speaking of violence, one of the most offensive things that's happened to us, again, the preponderance of the people being in the military, was the Secretary Hegseth calling the entire general staff into a room and explaining lethality to them.
Yeah. That must have bothered your colleagues who had been in those rooms.
It did come up, and a couple of the people who were in the room, they made their own comments known about it. But the thing is, but then you get into the manifestation of policy, okay, that particularly one is not in the news, and it should be, which is, in order for you to get a pension in the Air Force, if you do 15 years in the Air Force as an active duty person, you are entitled to a pension. Mm-hmm. But you have this exodus, this policy right now where transgender service members have to leave. They're leaving without pensions in the Air Force.
Oh, that's
yeah, it is. It is. And as far as I know, this came out towards the end of last year.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's changed. I know it's being challenged legality, and I'm hoping these people win. But just the fact that that's part of the policy, that's offensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing is you have these members of the military, ex-military members who are standing up, okay, and during the Caribbean, bombing people in boats, and this was, by the way, before the double tap scandal.
Yep.
Okay, that we're saying you have the obligation as a military officer to refuse an unlawful order, and now you have Senator Kelly being reduced in rank, and his monies. Okay, that's punitive. That goes back to one of our 6 C's. Everybody becomes an enemy. If you don't agree with me, you become an enemy. And there's new thing, David. And it's called FOFO. It's become a policy. Became a policy sometime towards the end of last year, and it was prior to Venezuela, and it's called Fuck Off, Find Out. Sorry for your children listeners.
No, that's, okay. I think they've heard that word.
But what essentially was, if you don't do what we say, fuck off, and you will find out. This was Maduro.
Ah, yes, I get it.
Okay, this was an article that was written in Foreign Affairs and The Atlantic. Mm-hmm. And they have said this. Rubin has said this. Hegseth has said this. Okay, now if this is what we've been reduced to as a policy, okay, where is partisanship? Where is negotiation? Where are our alliances? Where are all of the things that we've been able to benefit from? And then you start turning around and insulting people. I'm going right back to Davos. You know, our president of the United States goes before these business leaders, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And essentially, I don't know what he was thinking. First, he's threatening to invade Greenland, which would destroy NATO. Okay, and then he's essentially saying to all of these folks who are residents of countries other than the United States, plus the United States, saying, you know, you haven't had our back, which is totally incorrect. You know, and Denmark, on a per capita basis, lost more treasure during the Afghan war than we did.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, you're getting to the point where it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
The Boomerang is indiscriminate in the sense that I'm hoping that the man you just spoke of, whose name I don't like to repeat, is going to catch it. I mean, not only is his physical health mocked nowadays, is at first I thought, oh, it's kind of cruel to pick on a guy for, you know, stuff that a lot of our older folks have. But the brain part really bugs me because there's so many evidences that he is addled at best, and as witnessed in Davos. And you think now he looks at his popularity polls. That's a misnomer now, unpopularity polls. And also the mass movements. He hates big crowds that weren't there for him, et cetera, et cetera. So is there a point, and a lot of us keep asking this, is he still there? Is he still there? Do you see, I mean, this is just between friends. Do you see this guy finally catching it?
No, not really, because I think he's being propped up by people who are believers in the bullshit that they're giving him to say.
Yeah.
Okay, I see the Steve Millers, I see the Ludniks, the Project 2025 architect.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, I mean, one of the things that I would take the view is that I'm not sure the president, and who I'm not as big as fan, but I believe that he's living in a bubble, like they thought President Biden was living in a bubble when he started to show signs of age. You know, I'm speaking to you with 76 Candle just behind me here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was in a meeting yesterday. I was surrounded by these folks who were 40s and 50s. And, you know, I literally the first time I felt elderly. Okay, in a group of 150 people, David, not a great feeling.
Yeah,
you know, and so, you know, that's, you know, I'm going to have to process that a little bit more. But, and I want to circle back to, you know, this whole issue of practice that you and Peter have been espousing, which is spot on, which is you get your facts organized. You evaluate what an end state could possibly look like. You surround yourself with good people and you go for it.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's very simple. And the more you practice it and the more that you look at it and take all of these three key elements seriously. Okay. So when I look at the current administration and I get in arguments with people, my partners, my wife, other people, and I get into discussions where, you know, what is President Trump's definition of success? The terrible truth is, I don't think it has anything to do with governance. I think it has everything to do with money.
Amassing wealth. Yeah.
So and name recognition, naming buildings after himself and things like that. His definition of success is economics and notoriety.
What it's always been. I mean, you got to give him credit for being consistent.
Well, and the thing is, you know, I mean, somebody will say to you in frustration, well, why isn't he reading the polls? He doesn't care. A lack of popularity isn't restraining his ability to accrue wealth.
No.
Okay, it isn't lacking shameless, you know, I want the Nobel Peace Prize. It's not to say to Senator Schumer, you can have the money for the tunnel if you rename Dulles and Penn Station after me. Okay, those are things that you sit there and go, this is what we've been reduced to?
Yeah.
Okay, that, you know, I'm going to put my name on everything and I'm going to get as much money and play as much golf before I exit stage left, you know. And the thing is, you step back and go, dude is sitting exactly where he wants to be sitting, doing the things he wants to be doing. He's espousing stuff that we find offensive or just confused by. But at the same time, circling back to the practice, if that is your end state, he's got a lot of practice doing it.
Exactly.
And he's surrounding himself with people who are letting it happen.
Yeah, and the gist of practice is doing. So
Right.
while you're listening to all the words, you know, blah, 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 watch what they're doing.
Right.
That's what you've got to do. And it's very hard without a press that's free to tell us what they're doing and other excuses. Let me ask you this, Tom, because I'm watching the clock and how has this changed you as a practitioner of consulting, research, advisory? What's going on in you right now about your future?
I was having this discussion with a client, okay, who was one of my favorite clients, okay, is a woman who created a movement focusing on DEI. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, her name is Wendy Lewis, and the movement is called Ally Shift. Mm-hmm. Okay, or Ally Shift. Now, Wendy is a woman of color, born in Mississippi. Her career became the director of DEI for Major League Baseball, then McDonald's. When she left McDonald's, okay, right around January 6th, she and I were actually on a Zoom. She's still with McDonald's on January 6th. You know, she was in the process of saying, this is important to me. This is important to us. This is important to folks. And she created a movement that focuses on DEI, and there's a spiritual element to it.
Really?
That, you know, more focused on values than religion. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she was asked, David, 3 weeks ago, she asked me the same question. And the thing is, I'm really fortunate. I've had a great ride. Okay. You know, I've done a lot of interesting things and I've worked with some terrific people. And I have people who do read my stuff and listen to my speak.
I'll attest to that.
And so what happens is I just said, I'm done being politically correct. I'm done even being polite. I'm not going quietly. So if you read some of the things which I know you do, that, you know, where I'm basically referring to the research and saying, okay, listen, what you just did was hypocritical. And by the way, our research would say, that's not good. Yeah. You've just betrayed trust, you turkey.
Yeah.
So, you know, the thing is, I'm really fortunate. I've over the years have done all of this research, particularly in terms of what are you looking for in terms of a leader and what you're not looking for in terms of a leader.
Yeah.
And I'm just relying on that. And I'm not saying, by the way, you might want to consider, and so I'm kind of starting with the writing, you stupid shit. What are you thinking?
Well,
hopefully that answers your question.
Well, folks, the gloves are off, as they say.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, what the hell? You know,
the white gloves of the Boston hoity-toity. But that's all right, and that's what you're right about leadership. You talk to leaders, but you are a leader. And in our own way, all of us are. Everyone's looking at us one way or another and asking the question we started this with what are we going to do now? Because now it's absolutely clear that we are everything that we were warned this country would be. And we're shocked that it took so few months for it to happen. Shame on us for not having more strength in our institutions. However, now is okay. Just like I did, they look in the eye and they say, "Okay, how is this changing you, and are you changing? I mean, are you intentionally going to change how you show up by showing up?" And that's a really tough question for a lot of people so far. I mean, I live in a small town, and as soon as someone becomes, an agitator because they ask a question at a town meeting, you can get some pushback. However, what I'm hoping, and I think I'm seeing, is people are going, no, he was right, she was right. We didn't listen. Now they said this is coming, it's here, and we don't like it. We particularly don't like Minnesota. We particularly don't like the Epstein stuff. And so we're going to make some changes in how we perform in this world. And that would be a great revolution of the best kind, wouldn't it?
Yes.
If good people
Well,
continue.
I think that the change when it's coming has to be sustainable. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
we don't just all fall back into.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like,
lazy boys.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, if there wasn't something that was insidious that was in Trump 1, we wouldn't have Trump 2.
That's right.
Okay. And, I think the Democrats, I don't know if Trump won versus the Democrats lost, given the status of how the campaign worked with President Biden, who is at the heart a really decent man and was trying to do a good job. But absolutely. I think that, the reality is, David, in it's unfortunate, but, being a product of the military, you never want to say this and say it's your only option. But the truism is, in order to take down a bully, you have to be a bigger bully. Yeah. Okay. Now, we've been trying to avoid that. All right. I think on a geopolitical basis, on a domestic basis, et cetera. But I think that the gloves are going to have to come off. All right. I'm going to use a personal example to kind of wrap this up because I know we're running out of time. Veterans Day weekend. Okay. Veterans Day weekend. I was out shopping, and like a lot of veterans, I was wearing a hat that designated, being a veteran, and mine is a Special Forces hat. Okay. And I was in a parking lot of a area here in Massachusetts, which is a nice area. They're wandering around, looking for people. And I came across this 2 agents way too close to this woman, elevated voices. Okay, I didn't hear what they were asking, but I could tell that the woman was in distress.
Of course.
Okay, the 2 of them. So I walked over and I said, "What's going on, gentlemen?" Okay. And one of the guys says, "None of your fucking," and I tapped the hat and I said, "I just made it my business. So what's going on? We're asking for her papers. Do you think you could ask it quietly?" Okay. And I'm trying to be aware that I'm not drawing a crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. And the woman produces her green card. Okay. And, they didn't misbehave. I asked them to back up. Okay. Because they didn't have to be in her face. They didn't have to yell at her. Okay. They didn't have to attempt to intimidate her, which is what caught my attention in the first place.
Right.
The thing that bothered me the most was when I said, "Why are you picking on her?" Because she did not look, she looked like one of my sisters. Okay. She looked as American Irish as any one of my three sisters. Okay, so I did not understand why they were picking on this woman. So I was a little confused, and I said, "What? Why are you picking on this woman?" They heard an accent.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
No, I couldn't, and that's when I did lose it a little bit.
Yeah.
It brought out the American Irish, Boston Red Sox fan, type of thing.
Lord.
Get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah, but they were armed and you weren't.
You touch a special forces hat, they think twice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that goes back to the bully being a bigger bully.
Yeah,
and this is a conversation I had with my son, and he said, "What would have happened if you weren't wearing the hat?" And they said they would have thought, "Crazy old man, get the hell out of the way."
Yeah.
But it made him think twice.
Well, that's our hope then. Let's hope that
I want
all kinds of people who say that they work for the American public think twice, think three times, and maybe some of these men and women and I will find out, hey, gee, I still have a conscience. And
the thing is, you can condemn leaders, you can condemn the people who are taking advantage of their positions. But the reality is, David, I'm still of the opinion that most people are well-intentioned. I just landed from internationally coming through Atlanta. There's immigration people all over the place in Atlanta. They could not be nicer. Okay, as a matter of fact, the gentleman who's our driver came back from Brazil. First time he went through Atlanta, and he picked me up to bring me home as a limo driver. And we were talking about, how welcome you are by these people, welcome, home, welcome to the United States. I mean, they could not be nicer. Okay, they're armed. They're very well trained, but they've just decided, okay, this is the experience we want the people who are coming off the plane to experience.
Yeah.
And I just think that, nobody wants people who have either demonstrated they're here to do harm or have the capacity to do harm. This is what President Obama was doing. I mean, President Obama was not waiting for due process either. Okay, as part of his process, which is one of the reasons he was the king of deportation. But he was basically saying, okay, I'm going to have really high standards if you're here. If you're going to be able to stay, you got to be able to do this. But what's such an embarrassment to us in the United States is we still don't have a rational immigration policy.
No.
And the closest we came, promoted by this senator from Oklahoma, by no means a shrinking violet. Okay, he and AOC and Bernie do not have a lot to talk about. Okay, he shepherded a very aggressive immigration policy, and President Trump killed it.
Yeah, that was sort of historians will look at that moment.
Oh yeah,
and put a circle around it. Well, Tom Casey, I see those fists because the gloves are up. But you're also a gentle person, so it's kind of an interesting contrast. Yeah. And that's why I think your clients have trusted you, and your readers, and your podcast hosts have trusted you all these many, many years, because you're doing this. You want to be compensated, but you have a lot of heart, and I want to tell you that in front of my entire worldwide audience. So, Tom Casey, thank you.
I think my impatience is overrunning whatever compassion I have, but we'll see. David, as always, it's a pleasure. Feel better. Thank you again.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. If you'd like to hear more, go to Podomatic, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. And please consider purchasing our book on practice as a way of being at mylibrary.world. It's a digital book with lots of features that you do not see in a conventional book. So once again, thank you, and I look forward to you listening again.